E2.
Ah, man, you sank my destroyer. I need a drink. Swedish vodka? Again?
Sorry, we're all out of Greyhound. Hello and welcome to Random Movie Time. Today we will be discussing Greyhound, the 2020 film directed by Schneider, written by and starring Tom Hanks, with a brief appearance by Elisabeth Shue as well. This is a film based on the novel The Good Shepherd, written by C.S. Forester. And it follows the commander of a convoy, a multinational convoy, which is attacked by a number of German U-boats. It's a fictional account of part of the Battle of the Atlantic, and the destroyer that the commander is commanding is the USS Keeling, codenamed Greyhound. So, Tommy, what do you think of this film?
Well, it was okay. It was one of those movies that's basically one long battle sequence. People have made that observation about some other movies in recent years, like Mad Max Fury Road. Even Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, people have sort of said it's just sort of like one long battle sequence. But in those movies, they were being complimentary. You know, they're talking about that relentless action pace that doesn't really let up. It does let up, though, in those movies, and they're well paced. But this movie, it really is a long battle sequence. And because of that, you don't get a lot of character development. They do try and have a little bit, you know, with Tom Hanks's wife or fiance, played by Elisabeth Shue, at Christmas time. That's about the only flashbacks you get, and otherwise it's all set in one 48-hour period. It almost feels like real time, though, because when they aren't fighting, they're sleeping. So basically you get all of the fighting in the movie, and I guess that could be tense and dramatic to a point, but really it's loads and loads of technobabble, just, you know, about all of the Navy procedures for loading the guns and tracking the U-boats and damming the torpedoes and all of this. And yeah, I really found it didn't have a heck of a lot of character development. So it wasn't one of the strongest World War II movies I've ever seen. It had really good special effects. I have to mention that because at the end of the movie I just realized that I hadn't noticed any special effects. That's how good it was. It really looks like they're on the water. It really looks like there's explosions going all around. It couldn't have been filmed in the water. This movie must have all been filmed in a studio, or mainly just because, you know, you get that constant heavy rocking of the waves and that constant barrage of gunfire. So, you know, just the way the water was all the time and the way the boat was pitching all the time, I'm guessing it must have been filmed primarily in a studio. But the water effects they can do with CGI are so good now. It was very convincing. But you need more than that to make a really good action movie. You have to have characters that you can invest in. He has a cook. The cook has a little bit of a story. The cook is always trying to feed Tom Hanks, but Tom Hanks's thing in this movie is that he just refuses the food. He's got more important things to do. Give it to somebody else. You know, I'm not hungry right now. I can eat later. I can eat when I'm dead. That sort of idea. And, you know, this poor cook keeps making him these wonderful breakfasts and lunches and stuff, and just at that second they end up getting attacked by a U-boat, so nobody ever gets to eat the food. So that was kind of sad for him. But and they tried to make a moment of sort of poignancy with that character later, but really this movie is too shallow. No pun intended. It it needed a lot more than that to get you invested in all of the action sequences. So I'm thinking it's just sort of a average, maybe even slightly below average war movie. What did you think, Shannon?
I agree with a lot of what you said. There were a couple pleasant surprises for me, though. I'm not a big fan of Tom Hanks. Most movies I've seen Tom Hanks in, to me, he's just Tom Hanks trying to act like somebody else. But in this film, he was believable to me. Like, I was really pleasantly surprised by that. And I know there's a lot of Tom Hanks lovers out there, so don't get mad at me. But yeah, I really never liked Tom Hanks as an actor. But in this film, he does a very convincing job. He's obviously really passionate about this subject. He wrote the script, so like you say, there's a lot of techno babble and stuff like that, and a lot of procedure and stuff. So he obviously is passionate about this sort of thing, World War II history, perhaps. In that way, it was very impressive, I have to say. I think that anybody who is a World War II history fan might like it. I can't speak to his authenticity, the codes and all this other stuff, but I suspect this is really, that's the audience that it's meant for, people who are really interested in World War II history. Because the Battle of the Atlantic was a real battle. Well, it's not even, like, it took place during almost the whole war. So for that part, I find it very impressive. The other part that I was pleasantly surprised by is that there's not a lot of American bravado in this film, which I find happens a lot with American-centric military-type films. And there are some military films in the past that focus on Americans that I found a bit too over the top. And this is not that way. You see Tom Hanks as the commander. You see him working with the other countries. There's Canadians and there's Brits in the convoy. You see them all working together, and everybody is on the same level playing field. Nobody's better than the other. And that's one thing I really liked about it.
Really works a lot with his men too. Like, he had a lot of empathy for all of the men under his command.
Yeah, and he felt it when other people from other countries' vessels were lost or injured. So I really like that part of it. But yes, overall, and I have to admit, the first battle that came up with the U-boats, I was pretty glued. Like, I was like, wow, this is so cool. But I didn't expect the whole film to be like that. It really brought me in for that first battle. But then after that, it was like, when are they going to do something different? It's an hour and a half. The film is almost an hour and a half. And there's one little sliver at the beginning where you see Tom Hanks's character meet up with his girlfriend, played by Elisabeth Shue, and he proposes to her before he goes off to do this mission. And she refuses. She says, "You know what? We'll wait till you get back." And that was it. Like, after that, it was all on the water. It was all battles. There were some flashbacks, like Tommy said, but it really, really lost me after, I think, maybe half an hour in or something like that. It was just, after that, it was all technical stuff, all battle stuff, all World War II stuff. And to some people who are really into World War II history, that might be really something you'd be really, really into. But for me, I found it not engaging at all. Like you say, no depth, no character development. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think it could have been better as a short, like maybe part of an anthology series, because at maybe 1 hour, that could have been perfect, just showing how relentless the enemy attack was, and how hard it was to get these ships across the ocean to England with all these supplies they were delivering. It was quite suicidal, but yeah, a little too much for 2 hours of that.
So, Tommy, how many destroyers you give this one?
I'll give it 2 destroyers. It was okay. It's worth seeing, I guess if you're a Tom Hanks fan, or just for the visual effects alone. A couple of interesting parts, but I wouldn't really recommend you go out of your way. I think there's a lot of better war movies out there. So, yeah, 2 destroyers. What about you, Shannon? How many destroyers?
Well, I'll tell you, Tommy, 2 destroyers isn't enough to make a convoy. But if I give it another 2 destroyers out of 5, that'd probably be okay. So I give it 2 destroyers out of 5 as well. It's really well filmed. As I say, Tom Hanks does a really good job, but it's a one-trick pony to me. And if it would have been better as something like a short, like you were saying. So that's our take on Greyhound. And I guess we'll see you next time on Random Movie Time.